Hey folks, welcome into this section on using HP SmartStream Designer. Most of the time in industry we just talk about that as being Mosaic, and Mosaic is a fantastic program. I know that you've had your introduction to it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about using our data set to get ready for Mosaic. So one of the things we have to do is we have to design a data set, and this is going to be key for how many versions we're going to have of our images that we're going to be swapping out. And so in A1, I'm going to put anything in there that you want to. So it can be absolutely anything. And so I'm just going to put code. And of course, you can do whatever you like. And we have to have sequential numbers. Well, you don't have to have sequential numbers. If you want the randomization, then you have to have sequential numbers. So I want to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Of course, I could go ahead and type out 5 to 5,000. It might take me a while. One of the things that's nice with Excel is you can take any number sequence, and by having these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, actually I could have done it with just 3, but with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it knows the sequence that I want to use. So we're counting by single digits. We're not doing odd numbers. We're not doing even numbers. We're not doing multiples of 3. It would know all that. Whatever sequence you've got, it will replicate that sequence. Watch really closely how that my pointer changes to that small black plus. Okay, when you've got that, you know that you're over the corner, and we're going to be able to get this sequence. And I'm going to drag this out, and let's go ahead and do 400. I got down a little further than I meant to, but we're okay. So there's 400, 399 of this data set. So what we're going to be able to do with this is generate 399 unique images to go with our project. So I'm going to do a file and save on this, and bear with me one second. Let me get to the right place to save it. You want to really keep everything together. And I've already made a folder. "4558 demo," and I'm going to call this 4558 demo for base Mosaic. Okay, we'll save that. So now you can see our names up here. We've got a field name, which is code. We've got a sequential set of numbers in here. Just for an interesting point, if we took one of these numbers, like number 3, if I put number 3 down here, replace this one with number 3, those two records would be exactly the same. So Mosaic is going to use these numbers as a way to generate that unique image. So if any of these numbers were the same, then we would have the same image at that point. So I don't think you want to do that, but just know that if you did that, you would have a non-unique image. You would have the same image here and here. So now I'm over in Adobe Illustrator, and I've got a image open, and this is Seed Swirl 1 AI, and basically it's just a generic image file that is a vector. Okay, we had this discussion in the previews that if we were to use a raster based image here, when we start doing the scaling, the size of this file would get to be huge, and you're going to have hundreds, maybe thousands of these files, and all of a sudden storage is a problem, processing power is a problem, and you don't want to sit and wait and wait and wait for this project to process. So the idea here is that we'll have a file with a very low overhead. So we've got our vector file, and this one is just a standard AI file. It's saved as an AI file. I brought this in as an EPS file. So just pay attention to your file format and make sure that it is a vector. Okay, so I'm going to go up to File and do a Save As. I'm going to choose a PDF file. So we're using Illustrator to make sure that our image is exactly what we want. And by the way, I didn't mention this today, I did in the other section. This has to be a square image. So make sure that your image is square. And we're going to choose Adobe PDF, do save. All the standards, the defaults are good. I'm going to do save PDF, and now we've got that saved. Now we're going to jump over to InDesign and do the real work to make a finished project. So we're in InDesign now, and we've got our base page, nothing on it. What I'm going to do is go ahead and place that PDF. So right here's our 4558 demo. Remember, I'm keeping everything together in one place, and I'm going to place the PDF version of that seed swirl. So up here is our data set. This is another file I was working with earlier, so that one's not important to us right now. Seed swirl is the one that we just had up, and there's the PDF of it. So I'm going to choose the PDF, and we'll place that, and we'll just find right there's dead in the center of the page, so that should be good. And I'm going to go ahead and save this, and I'm going to make my way back to that same folder, and I'm going to give it a name here, 4558 base demo. And just so that we know where we're at, I'm going to create a text block here, something like that, and put GRA 4558, that's the class we're in, and I'm going to do this, let's say 200 point. Well, if I could have 200 point, and okay, let's resize this just a little bit. Okay, let's go back and just make it look a little better. We're not doing finished work here. We're just doing practice work. Okay, so we've got our GRA 4558 that's in front of our image, and that doesn't look bad. You know, if we wanted to have that as a flyer, you know, that's okay. But what we really want to have is this randomness and uniqueness of the background. So we talked about this in the preview. This image has to be turned into a channel. Okay? And when I look at SmartStream Designer, I'm going to turn that into a channel. If I look at my window and channels, there's my channels, and I've got my image selected, and notice that this icon that looks like what you would use over here if you were making a frame, it's the same kind of icon, it's lit up. If I've got something else chosen, it's not. So only when you've got an image chosen, that's going to be lit up. So I'm going to select that, and now we just turned this into an image or a channel. And so whenever we click on this one, you'll see it gets lit up. If we had several on here, like the Amarula bottles that we saw in the preview, that's you would have those lined up. In fact, they did. When they worked on that, they would have had, you know, left ear, right ear, uh, maybe header. I don't know what they would have called it, but those would be the individual items in here. So with that in mind, we don't have a data set defined, and that's going to happen up here in SmartStream Designer. And I'm going to go to Database, and I'm going to choose my data set. And so it's here, and notice that we did not save that Excel file as a CSV file. And so I should have done that to start with. I saved it as a regular Excel file, but that's not a big deal. So we'll just bump back over to Excel, and we'll save that as an Excel file. Okay, so we're back over in Excel. I'm going to click on File and Save As, and use that folder, and I'm going to choose here to save it as a CSV file. And we should be good right there. So now let's jump back over to InDesign. Let's see if it's happier with us now. It's much happier with us now. Notice we've got our header that showed up here, and if I wanted to scroll down through this, I would see all of my records, and up here is the total rows, 399. So it knows that they're all there, and this just gives us preview. It won't show us all of the rows that are in there. It shows us the first 100. So we're good. We've got all of our material here, and I'll tell it okay. Oh, one thing I do want to check, this default assets folder, it should be our demo folder, okay, because that's where we want to work from. Okay. So everything else, we're going to keep the defaults, and we should be good right here. So if we go back in our document, select our background image, double click our channel. I know that I showed you this particular dialog box earlier in the preview. Okay, this is where we're getting it from. We double click channel. I'm going to pull this down. We're going to tell it this is going to be a dynamic image, and it automatically goes to Mosaic. And there's lots of other options, but Mosaic is going to be the default. Whenever you choose dynamic image, make sure that this one says PDF, and depending on your particular image, you're going to have one of these works better than the other, and so you're going to have to experiment a little bit here. For the most part, fit content proportionally is going to be the best one to use. So I would start off with that, but there may be a time that it doesn't work. So if you get your image that doesn't seem to fit in here, then you can change out. Okay. So I'm going to do fit content proportionally there, and then we can look at our settings. This is an interesting part, and this is a big gotcha for folks when they first start working. Mosaic gives you a default template file, and so our default template file is inside the Mosaic folder in with the program, and I'm going to choose to load that, and then I'm going to choose to save as a template, and that's going to go not into this dynamic folder, but into our 4558 demo folder. We want to keep everything together. So now we've got that in place, and I can choose edit, and we're going to get a third level of dialog boxes. Okay, now just a heads up, if Java is not working properly on your computer, and we talked about this in the preview, this is when it's going to show up and fail. Okay, so when you click edit, if it just sits here and does not bring up this next screen, then that's a Java issue, and it's been more common on the Mac side than on the Windows side. But if you notice down here, the Java icon is what's live to be here. So if you do have an issue with Java, then you need to go back and look at your install, and the Amazon version that's on the link on the web page, that one works great. And so I would go back to that and make sure that you did install it. Okay, one thing I do want you to pay attention to, this default template that they give you, you have to start with every time. It has 3 different seed files, and we're only going to be working with one, so we have to get rid of actually all of these and put our own in place. So I'm going to hit the trash can icon down here and get rid of 2 of these. I can't get rid of the next one because you can't have this be blank, so I'll go ahead and pull this down, and there is seed swirl 1, and that's our image we were working with over on Illustrator. Okay, a couple of things here. We've got our scaling is the default is 400 to 800, and this is how much of that image would get used at any given time. And we talked about the issue of having large blocks, and this could be a problem because look at that where it's zoomed in the tightest. Look how much just green white. There wouldn't be a lot of the design in there. So we probably want to move that down some, and we could go to 200, and maybe that's a better minimum and maximum. Let's do this one to 400. Oh. Okay, so I've got that at 200 and 400, and I told you in the preview the number here has to be 142 or bigger, and the reason for that is that 142, the blue line, is this minimum. If we had this as less than 142, we couldn't have a complete image. We would be off the edge on the corners. And so if we try to put a number in that is like a 100, we get this error warning, and you can see how that would be off the page. So we couldn't get it all in place. So if we want to do no rotation, it's happy again. So if you wanted to keep this image always square and not rotated, and by square I'm just talking about being parallel and perpendicular to our original image. So if you had words in here that you wanted always to be parallel, then maybe you set this to none. A lot of folks that are working with spot colors, we're going to do spot colors in a later lesson. If you're working with spot colors, then maybe that's going to be your randomness. Okay, but we are going to do free action here, and so I'll move this back to 142, and so now it's going to be happy. So 142 is the magic number. That's the least scale that you can have and still have it fill up your image. Position, you can do it centered, and so it would always be from the center of the image. I'm going to do random so we can have it from all over the image. And rotation, you can choose any of these presets, so you could have them at 1 degree to 180 degree, and so you would always know exactly what number that was going to be at. You could do it at none, and that would always have it like we had just a second ago, where that there's no rotation to the image. Or free rotation. It's not exactly free. It is 1,000 points around uh, our uh, our image. So basically, you could think of it as a third of a degree, uh, the rotation on here. So that's our rotation settings. Don't worry about crop according to channel proportions. When we do our spot color lesson a little bit later, we'll turn this on and work from there. And if we did have multiple seeds and we were happy with this setting, we could just click apply seeds settings to all seeds, and it would work for all of those. And one thing I do want to point out to you, if you had not saved your own copy of this template file, and so I've obviously got this in my folder, there will be a message up here that says you can't overwrite the default uh, template file, and OK would be ghosted and it would not let you click on it. So just know that if you've got a message up here, if you can't click OK, then you'll probably have a message up here that says you can't overwrite your file, and so you need to go back and save a copy of that file back into your working folder. So I'll click OK. That would be with this icon. So when you click save here, save it back into that particular, into your working folder. So I'll click OK. I'll click OK again. And I'm going to come back to, this is the tools for our Smart Stream Designer Mosaic. And I'm going to click on preview, and I'm going to turn on the preview and watch what happens. This was our seed image as we placed it. Okay, I'm going to click preview, and now there is record number 1. Okay, and here's record number 2, and record number 3, and record number 4, and record number 5. And so I could keep on clicking through this. We've got 400. I'm not going to go through all 400 of them, but actually we've got 399 if you want to be picky. But I'm going to click through these, and you can see the variation, but we still have the same image. And so it's a fantastic tool for the packaging industry. So what I want you to do, go through, see if you can do what I did. Okay? Use your own. There's no deliverable with this. It's just practice for you. Okay. We're going to do a little bit more in depth with the package side of things, and work with spot colors, and then we'll get into our actual project. So if you've got questions, feel free to ask. I'll be more than happy to get you pointed in the right direction.